And I want to ask you a question. Have you noticed how that there's something about bonfires, right? During the day, everyone seems to be busy. Some people are throwing around a rugby ball. Other children are just running around. Someone is trying to keep the fire going while someone else is burning the marshmallows. But as the sun begins to disappear, it starts to get colder. And people start to pull their chair closer. And you can hear the fire crackling and the jackets zip up. The conversations begin to slow down. And then someone asks, "Can I tell you something?" And that's just something about a fire. That the longer the fire goes on, the more honest people become. The masks begin to fall. People begin to share things that they never would share to anyone else. And also, isn't it interesting that nobody gathers around a bonfire to impress each other? They gather because it is cold. And I wonder if church wasn't supposed to be more like a bonfire, where it isn't about a performance, but a place where we can let those masks fall, where we can have that honest conversations. And that around God's fire, we drop the mask, we share real stories, and we find grace and healing. The title of my message today is No Perfect People. No perfect people allowed. No perfect people allowed does not mean that we do not care about holiness, but it means that the church is a place where we can say, "I need help," and instead of people moving away from you, they move towards you. They carry those things with you. So I have 3 points I want to share today, and really picture that picture during the message, that picture of the fire, the bonfire that I mentioned. And my first point is come to the fire. Come to the fire. In Acts 2, verse 46 to 47, it says, every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And sincere here literally means to be genuine, to let those masks fall, to be without pretense. Everyone came, different backgrounds, different stories, different history, different successes, different failures, and yet they all belonged around the same fire. All of them belonged in this community. Healing never happens from a distance. You can't get yourself warm when you are 50 meters away from the fire. But you actually have to draw closer. And I know that this has been said in both our previous sermons that we had in this series. But I think it is worth repeating that we have to draw closer. We have to come to the fire. We have to. Jenny Allen, who is a Christian author who wrote many books on community, said this in one of her books, Find Your People, where she said, we all desire that deep connection. We want someone to know our deepest parts and to love us anyway. That type of community doesn't just come naturally. We have to look for it and fight for it. We have to look for it and we have to fight for it. So where do we begin to look? Do we just look for anybody and anyone who gives us attention? Do we just go around and see who we can find? No. And this is Paul's advice on this. We seek out healthy people. In 1 Corinthians 11 verse 1, he says, follow my example as I followed Christ's example. In other words, follow me as I follow Christ. When we're looking for a community, someone to belong to, a friend, a people to surround ourselves with, look for someone's life who shouts those words. Follow me as I follow Christ. If you want to know whom to connect with, look for someone whose life shouts those words. Find someone who's following hard after Jesus and ask them for a coffee. Yeah. Or that really gross drink with the fancy name, matcha. Yeah. Like we did a project with APSA, and there was this place, this coffee place, and they began to sell matcha, but it was like so expensive. And I told myself, no, I shouldn't. I really shouldn't buy there. And then after like a few months, this was like my last week, I'm like, finally, this is my last day here, let me just buy matcha. And that was the worst waste of my money. Like, I think re-coffee tastes better. You can hear I'm a coffee snob, but it's fine. Seek out healthy people. Notice I didn't say seek out perfect people, but seek out healthy people. When you're thinking about a potential friend, a community, someone to surround yourself with, ask yourself, do they have clear values? Do they seem to have good, healthy relationships with others? Or are they closed off to other people? When I'm around them, do I feel seen and valued? Do they actually listen? Or is the conversation always about them? Are they motivated to grow? Do they have real joy and peace in their life? Now, nobody's going to get that right 100% of the time, all of the time. But what you're looking for is a pattern, a lifestyle of growth and health. Someone who strives towards that. And here's the other side of it. We need to become those people. You cannot have it, but you cannot have those type of friends, but don't be that type of friend yourself. We cannot have that type of community if we are not those people. We have to do it ourselves. We have to initiate. If you want deeper conversations, if you feel like you always have shallow conversations with the people around you and you can't be vulnerable and sincere around them, you should initiate deeper conversations. Yeah. If you feel like nobody's there for you, no one shows up for you, start showing up for other people. And I promise you, the more consistently you do that, people will do it back to you. So where do I start to look? Well, I would suggest right here is the best place. The church. Join the fire. Come to the fire. Join that life group that you've been meaning to join. Stay a little bit longer after church service. Join the hikes that happen in this church. Yeah. Or the running. Yeah. There was more cheering for the hiking. Dang. Choose to make yourself known and be known. No, get to know others. Sign up to serve. Join that real life church Potjiekos competition. That's definitely, I hope, going to happen. If you were here last week, you would get that joke. But we have to come to the fire. So the next part of our picture, we come to the fire. Next up, we stay at the fire. And this is where commitment comes in. A lot of people visit the fire. A lot of people visit the fire. But very few stays around it. On Fridays, we've made a lot of bonfires, and I've seen almost everyone that attend the Friday youth service, almost everyone would visit the fire. Someone would come and they would get their marshmallow and they would walk away. But very few will remain around it. Very few people will stay at that fire. And it's usually the people that stay at that fire where we have the realest, most honest conversations with. Some people stay so long, I have to ask them to leave. Like, just call your mom, it's been 3 hours. Youth is back this Friday, by the way. But it takes commitment. Research shows that it takes 200 hours for an acquaintance to become a best friend. 200 hours for someone to actually become a close person in your life. Some people think they've met their future wife or husband after 2 hours. Like they're the soulmates. But 200 hours. The unfortunate thing is most of us won't nearly reach 200 hours because we give up too easily on each other. It takes commitment. Being commitment means choosing to prioritize each other again and again and again. Committing consistent time day in and day out. It's making time for one another consistently, even if it is inconvenient. Can you imagine? I've seen always friendship circles that change. Like, you rarely see a friendship circle that stays the same over like 5 years. But what if we were people that were committed to each other? Because it takes commitment. Jenny Allen also said that we have to become people who stay. We have to become people who show up to chop things for a few hours and stay even later to do the dishes. Time and time again. And I don't know what most of you, if not all of you, are thinking. My schedule won't allow it. Like, I do not have time to build this community. I don't have time to allow people in. Like, I barely have time for myself. But what if we broke the rules of how we spend time together so that we could actually spend time together? What if you invited someone over even if your house is a mess? What if you invited someone over to do the chores with you? Stop by someone else's house unannounced. But if you're going to do that, show up with food. Study together. But again, if you're going to do that, study together actually. Offer to help someone paint their room. Ask to borrow someone else's clothes instead of buying it at the shop. I'm a guy, so I think that's fine, but ask to join someone else's family dinner. I'm definitely not hinting, but that would be nice. But these suggestions are brave and they might be way out of your comfort zone. But I'm here to tell you that unless and until you and I get serious about logging time with one another, we won't have that deep connection that we crave for. Unless we spend significant time with each other, we won't have that deep friendships where we can actually be vulnerable around each other. That type of connection that God designed us for. The type of friendship takes a lot of commitment. And I'm convinced that the key reason for our loneliness, the key reason that we don't have deep, meaningful friendships, the reason why we don't have people that we can be vulnerable around with, I'm convinced, is because we give up too easily on each other. It takes commitment. Trust grows over time. It takes a lot of hours. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of cleaning out closets, a lot of showing up, a lot of working it out, a lot of tears, a lot of laughter, a lot of food. Yeah, maybe I am hungry. A lot of inconvenience. We give up on each other because it is too costly. It's messy. And it is hard. We have to accept that truth. But hear this as well. You can do hard things. God is with you. He is for you. And because He is with you, you can do hard things. You can be hurt. And you can be hurt and accept forgiveness. You can hurt other people and you can apologize. You can work things out, even if they are messy. You can show up. You can choose consistency and inconvenience. And the friendship that you will gain will be worth it. Our third point in this picture. So the first point was to come to the fire in this picture. The second one was to stay at the fire. And after we've stayed at the fire, we need to share around the fire. And we cannot get there. We cannot get to sharing at the fire if we don't have that first 2 points. Because you're not just going to go to a random person and tell them your deepest thoughts, your deepest struggles, and the things that you've been struggling with and the addictions that you face after meeting them for only 5 minutes. That would be weird. I would probably walk away. I'd be like, what's going on? Okay, I wouldn't walk away, sorry. But I would still think it's weird. But we have to come to the fire. We have to stay at the fire. We have to surround ourselves with people and actually be committed to each other, spend time together, and that is how trust grows. And after that, the masks fall. In fact, they must fall. In James 5, verse 16, it says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and results. Confess your sins to each other. Why do we find that so difficult to do? Why do we find it so difficult to share around the fire? Why do we find it so difficult to let other people see the real us? Well, why do we find it so difficult to share those deepest thoughts that we have? And I think there's 2 reasons for that. Firstly, we hide because of pain. I don't know about you, but being vulnerable isn't my best quality. Because I tried being open-hearted and honest, but that kind of living burns you, where you get judgment instead of understanding, where what I would disclose would become gossip, and the things I would say, I would later regret saying it. And over time, relational hurt stacks themselves high enough that something in you hesitates whenever someone wants to really know you. What I realize is that we've built tall walls with locked doors around our life. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has built those walls before, those walls where we keep hurt out. Those walls that we hide to not be vulnerable because it is safe there. But the other side of it, nothing changes if we have high walls. What are your past relational hurts? In what ways have you been hurt? Have you opened up to someone only to find what you've said be used against you? Have you drawn yourself closer to a group of people only to eventually find yourself on the outside of that group? Have you shared a struggle only to find a sideways glance of judgment instead of understanding? And make you feel like that you're the only one who struggles. You're the only one who faced this type of addiction. Have you invited and shared and invested only to when you needed it, no one showed up? And after all of that, it is easy to say, yeah, I'm just going to build those walls. I'm going to keep those doors shut. I'm going to hide. I'm going to live behind those walls. But what I want to tell you is that vulnerability is choosing you. And it is choosing me. It's asking us to come out of hiding and to engage. To quit living behind those walls. And while admittingly, excruciatingly painful at times, the lesson I'm learning right now is that vulnerability is the soil of intimacy. And what waters that intimacy is tears. Real gut-wrenching honesty about that friend, about that fight that you had with your boss that made you want to leave. Or that verbal fight that you had with a family member that just made you so frustrated. That addiction that is eating you up. alive. Or the small stuff that makes you cry. The things that keep you up at night. The anxiety you feel when you feel like that you don't measure up. Or the ache that you feel to have someone in your life. And while it is true, if you hide behind those walls, you keep out the potential of being misunderstood or wronged or devastated or disappointed or mistreated or hurt. You also keep out the things that God created us for, that He designed us for, the good things. Everything that we were built to crave, being encouraged, being held accountable, being seen, being known, being loved. None of those things is possible unless and until we let those walls fall. We must risk pain to have that kind of connection. We must risk pain if we want to have that type of deep, deep relationships. In Mark 2, there's a story about a paralyzed man where 4 friends carried him to Jesus and he experienced healing. But he could have very easily have said, I don't want you to see my weakness. I don't want people in my life to see the weakness that I'm carrying, the struggles that I'm facing. And he could have very easily said, no, I'm going to try and fix this, trying to go through life on my own. But then he would not have experienced the healing that Jesus had for him. Yeah. And sometimes our greatest miracle is on the other side of letting people carry us. Sometimes our greatest miracle is on the other side of allowing people to carry us. Brené Brown, also an author, said vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It is the source of hope, empathy, accountability, and authenticity. If we want greater clarity in our purpose, or deeper or more meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. So we hide because of pain. But pain is not the only reason why we hide. Sometimes we hide because of shame. You see, pain makes us hide from people. Shame makes us hide from God. And Peter knew what that felt like. He knew what it was like to hide. Peter wasn't just any disciple. This was Peter. He is the one who walked out of the boat onto the water. He is the one who said Jesus, who boldly declared that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the one who said, even if everyone else leaves, I will never forsake you. And he believed those words. He strongly believed those words. He wasn't lying. He was genuine. He thought that his faith was stronger than what it really was. And then one night, everything changed. Jesus is arrested. The disciples scatter. Peter follows from a distance. Eventually, he finds himself standing around a fire in the courtyard of the high priest. Can you imagine it? It is cold. The fire crackles. People are warming their hands. The soldiers are talking. Peter is trying not to be noticed. He's trying to just blend into the crowd. And then a servant girl looks at him and says, wait a minute, aren't you one of his disciples? Peter immediately says, no, you've got the wrong guy. And again, someone else says, no, I'm sure of it. I've seen you with Jesus before. And again, he says, no, not me. And a third time, someone says, I'm sure of it. I've seen you with Jesus. And this time he calls curses on himself and he says, I do not know this man. And that very moment, the rooster crows. And directly after that, we read in Luke 22 something that gives me goosebumps. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Can you imagine that? As soon as he denies Jesus 3 times. The rooster crows, and Jesus looks directly at Peter. That exact moment, he looks at Peter. No words, just eye contact. And then Peter remembers the word that the Lord had spoken to him, that Jesus said to him, that before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. He goes against the very thing that he said he would never do. That he would never deny him. That he would never deny Jesus. And 3 times he denies Jesus like Jesus said he would. And as soon as that happens, Jesus looks straight at him. Peter, being so overwhelmed by his shame, just goes outside and he cries bitterly. If that was the end of Peter's story, I don't think there's much hope for us. Because most of us know what it feels like to fail. Maybe not denying Jesus around the fire, but we've all had moments that we wish that we could take back. Moments where we thought, I've messed this up real bad. How can God use someone like me? But luckily, that was not the end of Peter's story. It's not the end of ours. Peter's story does not end in shame. A few days later, Jesus rises from the dead. Peter is back to fishing. He's back where he started. He probably thinks that this is all that he is good for right now. And then one morning, Jesus is standing on the shore. The disciples come in from the water, and John tells us something fascinating. When they arrive, there's a charcoal fire. Charcoal, yes. So for those that can't start a wooden fire, the Bible got you. It really was a charcoal fire. But there was a first fire where Peter denied Jesus, and then there's this second fire. And around this, the first time Peter denied Jesus, the second time Jesus restores him. And I don't think that's an accident, that Jesus recreated the whole scene of his greatest failure, not to shame him, but to redeem him. Jesus had breakfast waiting, bread, fish, a place by the fire. And then he asks Peter, do you love me? 3 times. Not because Jesus needed the answer, but because Peter needed the healing. 3 denials and 3 opportunities to declare his love. And after every answer, Jesus does not say, I told you so. I knew you were going to do that. Or you should have known better. But after every time, Jesus says, feed my sheep. I still have purpose for you. I still choose. Offers him grace. Because around Jesus' fire, failure is not the end of the story. But grace gets the final word. And this is exactly why Jesus died. The gospel isn't about finding perfect people. It's about rescuing broken people. Jesus didn't go to the cross because of something that we could do. He knew that there's nothing we can do. And yet he chose the cross anyways. Jenny Allen once again says that freedom allows us to be vulnerable because we don't have to be perfect in anyone's eyes. The gospel makes it safe for us to be vulnerable. Because of the gospel, we don't have to hide anymore. We don't have to wear a mask anymore. We don't have to pretend anymore. Because if Jesus already knows the worst in us, of us, we can be truthful. We can be vulnerable to the closest people around us. Because Jesus knows the worst and he still chose us. Romans 8 verse 1 to 2. So there is no condemnation for those who belong to Christ Jesus. Because you belong to him, the power of the life-giving Spirit has freed you from the power of sin that leads to death. So to conclude today's message, when you walk out of here today, the question you should ask yourself is not, was this a good message? But rather, what is my next step? What am I going to do about it? You have to come to the fire. We have to stay at the fire, and we have to share